is the measure of our Father's love. Great is the measure of our Father's
Birds were singing sweetly so, and a gentle breeze skipped my heart so I would know the miracle of here. Is this the last day I will see a beautiful world where love still comes down to redeem? Like the dew goes in the morning light, your perfect peace can make things right. Like the dawn is red after a star-filled night, your sweet presence fills my soul. Your sweet presence touch my soul. Shimmering light makes my longing rise to fly again. Oh, pierce my heart, the majestic glory calls my name. Like the dew in the morning light, your perfect peace can make things right. Like the dawn is red after a star-filled night, your sweet presence fills my soul. Your sweet presence come touch my soul. Faith of a child, your goodness in the wild.
A veteran recording artist, one in his ninth release, Michael has garnered critical acclaims for his previous 8 albums, notably strong reviews from the Secular Press. For his spiritual context albums, Michael developed an accessible crossover appeal to those who have little or no connection with Christian churches or faith. His blue-eyed, souled voice and rhythmic guitar style digging into facets of roots and popular jazz music. Originally from Montreal, Michael grew up in the bilingual environment with popular music in French. He also lived in England under the direct influence of bands and songwriters who formed the nucleus of the British invasion. One of the first guitar players to inspire him was John Martin, and I hope I'm pronouncing it right, whose punchy picking and slap percussive style became an early influence in his playing. So I want to introduce to you on the Praise Life Voting Show this morning, Michael Hart. And I want to thank Jason, our producer, who put this together. So we're going to say welcome to Michael. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. As you be here with us, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
So you started off in Montreal. You probably went to England and then come back to Vancouver. Is that where you at?
Yeah, and I was sort of in a couple of secular bands.
Mm-hmm.
There, one of them was an a cappella group that was kind of Vancouver's answer to the Nylons.
Right. Oh, I remember the Nylons. That's back in the day,
and
the a cappella group, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
So
love
see,
this group, guy.
Energy, we were six. We were actually three men, three women.
Uh-huh.
Then the women sort of split off and decided to do their own thing as a trio. And then I formed a band with my own brother called the Hart Brothers. And,
Right.
we did a lot of schools and festivals and stuff like that. You know how it is. You're just looking for the gigs that keep you going.
Right.
And then it was, you mentioned your first album. I think you said late 80s there. And that's what happened to me is I just kind of went, how can I bring a spiritually themed music, we were wrestling with it a bit in the Hart Brothers band, how much of that to allow into the band.
Mm-hmm.
And then the band just sort of naturally moved on. And, my brother's a very gifted musician in his own right, also a fiddle player. And but I sort of was moving in a new direction lyrically. And I just eventually put an album together called True back in I guess it was about 86 that came out, same as yours.
Right. Mine came out in 96, actually.
Oh, 96.
96,
So,
yeah. I started off in 86 doing some stuff, but I just kind of packed it in and said forget about it. And then,
Okay.
yeah, 96.
Yeah, so actually the first one, believe it or not, is in vinyl, which is kind of neat to see vinyl coming back. London Drugs is selling vinyl records.
Yeah.
But I just sort of kept going, and then and I just sort of kept getting, I guess, connected and invited. So I by grace of God, I just ended up. People would say to me, "What was one of your dreams?" And I said, "Well, my dream actually was because now I was in Vancouver, and I'm originally from out." He says, "I wanted to play and serve in every province in the country, and somehow God just opened those doors."
Right.
I never got to the Yukon or Northwest Territories, so if anybody wants to invite me up there, I'll go. but otherwise, and there's such a uniqueness to this country and the people I'd meet, and sometimes it was staying in a hotel, sometimes it was getting billeted in people's homes. So you'd find out about people and what they've been through. I met farmers in the prairies. I met all sorts of just really interesting people across the country. So it was a real privilege to do that. And I was full time doing that up until about 2007-8.
Right.
I put out a retrospective album called So Far So Good that was kind of like a best of. And then I kind of got into chaplaincy and I'm presently working with some guys that are recovering from addiction in the downtown east side. And I'm sure you guys have heard, about this opioid crisis. So they asked me to integrate a music program that would contribute to guys' recovery.
Right.
And that's been a fascinating journey in its own right because, a lot of these guys, they've got music in their minds or hearts, and they ask me, hey, can we do this song? And again, a lot of the tunes are like, really cool, redemptive secular tune.
Right.
And so we kind of caught this curious mix going of about 80 songs there, half of which would be praise music, from our churches.
Right.
The other half, songs by Phil Collins or Eric Clapton and Stevie Wonder, just a variety of different modern day artists. So
Right.
my music is, I guess, always had this sort of crossover element.
We got certain things in common. You talk about chaplaincy. I am a chaplain myself.
Very cool.
A certified chaplain. Actually, we're two different organizations, to tell you the truth. And in terms of the crossover music, I've always been one that says music should have no borders. And we have this thing we call gospel music, and then we have what we call secular music. I think it should be music with gospel lyrics or music with secular lyrics, but we kind of divide it in a certain way, because I look at it this way, because one is a believer and a child of God, it don't mean that they can't sing music that is not necessarily outlandish and way out there, but music that can reach the soul and the heart of people, that can bring them to an understanding what life is all about, because some people just need to hear something that soothes them. And then, because, for example, I'm a believer, I'm a Christian, but I don't work in a church. I don't work in a secular field, as we would call it. I work in a field where there are totally non-Christians around me. So I just see music as a job. So what you did is kind of remind me. And the interesting thing is that, if I heard this correctly, you were part of the Nylons?
No, just that our band in Vancouver was called Brass Tacks.
Right.
And,
Brass Tacks. I remember Brass Tacks.
so we got some play on CBC, stuff like that.
Yeah.
We were playing around the same time as the Nylons, and I think they were aware of us. We were aware of them. I think they definitely had a lot more notoriety at the time.
Right.
And man, they were very dynamic live. And So yeah, those were the sort of roots I came from, with a strong emphasis on vocals and harmony. Guitar thing, like I liked percussive rhythmic guitar.
Right.
And then, I in England, by the way, it was sort of interesting the amount of soul artists, like there's a whole scene there and of course that's moved on now into, hip hop and so on.
Right.
Back then it was Aretha Franklin and, stuff like that, and a whole, all the stuff, the Temptations,
Right.
and,
Yeah.
the Four Tops, and the big scene on soul music. So I was also being, by osmosis, soaking that kind of stuff in, and that kind of backbeat. So hence the blue-eyed thing that crept in over time, where all of us are product of our influences, I guess. But
Well, you got
sorry to
Go ahead.
cut in there. One of the things that struck me, because I'm the one who usually, when music is submitted to the radio station, usually my ears are the first ears to hear them.
Okay.
and kind of filter them, because you get music from all over the world, and just want to get the music out there. And what really struck me was just the guitar. And just, oh man, the melody. I think that just grasped my attention, and then just the balance with the strong, the vocals, because we don't hear a whole lot of that per se. Anyway, to my knowledge, maybe it does exist, but maybe nothing has really fall into my lap. And sometimes we out there, we hear so many different things that we miss out on the balance, the guitar, the instrumental, the strong, and so you touched on the crossover, and I was actually going to question that, because I think that's very important in this day and age to kind of have that balance, because of the people who we actually servicing, who we actually ministering, not to come off too strong with the churchy, because sometimes you'll miss a whole lot because they will get turned off.
Right.
So that's an awesome blend.
Yeah, you summed it up, and people will push back if it's too strong. But if you can give them something, music with some passion, with some good balance of the instruments and that, they might start to feel it in some other ways. I mean, I've had a few people say, hey, lyrics, but listen, I'm not sure about lyrics, but listen, musically, it's grabbing me somewhere, right? It might be that jazz piano solo, or like the guitar. And by the way, the guitar work on this electric guitar is by an amazing British player, Graham Ward. And this guy is just steeped in the blues rock tradition. Right. Like, he grew up in a musical family in England. He's moved here. And this guy, he does all the slide work that you hear, all the electric licks.
Wow.
And so he and I just have had this rapport, and we did some touring for about 18 months back in 2003 and 4. And I was just thinking, who's the right man to do the guitar for all these tunes? And I went, Graham. He's got just the touch and the tone,
I mean, it's good to talk solid music, and when it comes to because you have a different feel coming from the blues side, jazz side, to what you come into what we call gospel, but I still call it all rhythm and blues kind of thing, with the organs and the keyboards and so forth. And the feel is different, but it's good to know that we can take good music and still use it for God, because sometimes people forget that you can't bring some sloppy stuff and think it's okay. You got to bring your best and let Him do the rest.
It's so true, and you can only be who you are in the end, and so like some of those influences have kind of gotten themselves into my soul. I'm just going to put that out there and make it as creative as I can. On this particular album, by the way, one of the things that I found out about 15 or so years ago was that I did an album live off the floor. Not a concert thing, but just there were 4 of us, and I was doing the vocals at the same time with the guitar. So you're getting a bit of bleed through with your mics, but I just felt I was capturing more passion and interaction with the players.
Right.
And I sort of feel like that's what happened with this project with One, is that we got the guts of it, the heart of it, done live off the floor, then brought in the women to do the Bee Gees, and their warmth just added that smokiness, and then a little bit of violin just in a couple, 3 or 4 tunes. So, but it's the liveness that I wanted to get across, because I feel that's where the spirit comes in. We're doing it live. It's like when we go to church, it's live.
Yeah.
There's something mediated to us. It's God's spirit. So we were trying to move in that place as well. So I think that's
my question that I want to ask you, though, apart from the fact that you were doing the secular stuff before, as we called it, and then you have the churches. What kind of pushback did you get from churches, especially when they're thinking, are you really gospel or are you secular? How should we accept you? Did you get a bit of a pushback from them at all?
I did. I did. It actually went both ways. I'll give an example each way. I'll keep it short. But I was hired by the Billy Graham Evangelistic Association for 5 years when they were doing outreach or crusades, I guess the older word, in different communities. And I got hired to go in and do these concerts in schools. I got pulled aside at least 3 times before. We want your guarantee that you're not going to be, preaching at us and coming on too strong. No, it's okay. A lot of my songs are about life and also peer pressure and kids avoiding drugs and alcohol. And that was how we got into the schools. And so I had songs on that theme. So I found that context was really important. And if I stayed faithful to the context. So similarly in the church on Sunday morning, I need to serve the context, which is really primarily not outreach now, but almost a reminder to the believers, some of whom have gone through a disorientation and some difficult things in their week. They come in Sunday morning, they might have had an argument in their car with their family on the way there, and you want to do a song to remind them of who our great God is. Yeah. And so that might move a little bit more into what I call an overt or direct praise. So I think context is really important. It can't be all things to all people, but I just try and pay attention to who's the crowd, who's coming, how can God reach out and touch their heart today, and just keep it flowing. And
that's what I call experience.
You know what? And that's wonderful because there's a level of discernment that you have to have to deliver at a high level.
And by the way, don't get me wrong. I mean, I've made some mistakes, where I got some feedback. I'm on a retreat, and they said, you should have been more over here. I said, okay, well, thanks for letting me know. I read that wrong, But then you keep fine tuning, right? There's always grace working with us and God being faithful. That's the thing I just amazed over time. Why am I still here? Not because of the tricks in my bag. It's because of God's faithfulness that He keeps giving me grace. He keeps enabling me to have enough health to continue and to play and learn and play with other musicians who fire me up and get me going. And that's what I find too, playing with others. I find there's more passion coming out of me because Graham's playing this lick on his electric guitar and the jazz piano, and then you know how it is. You're rolling with it. And vocally, I sometimes go to a slightly different place.
Well, I am so happy we get hooked up with you. We on our morning show, the Praise Life morning show, you've just actually bring a whole different type of opening the mind to understand that we've been trained to listen or taught to listen to one style, but here's another style that we're opening up to again. Now, I'm like Jason already told Jason, I listen to all kinds of music. One of my favorite music to chill with, and I drive with it, is classical music. I love classical music. I love jazzy music. So I kind of tune down with that sometimes, and I listen to that because it takes me places. And I find as Christian folk, we get ourselves locked into one style of music, and we don't seem to want to move off, especially whether it's country, whatever. We got these little pocket holes that we stick in. And I normally tell folks that Christianity or Christendom is like a garden of many different types of roses and flowers and weeds and all kinds of that helps to make this beautiful garden. And if we don't put these things in there, we'll never know how beautiful this garden can become. And to hear your music and to hear what you're doing, there's no way Clairmont Humphrey, can touch the crowd that you would touch. And I'm quite sure there's some ways that you may not be able to reach the crowd that I'm probably going to reach, and vice versa for Jason as well. So we all have our part to play.
I couldn't agree. We all are part in our geographies, and some of that geography may go further with others. I mean, I love this image in Isaiah where God says, I'm gonna stretch your tent pegs out.
Right.
Yep.
He's the one who decides where those tent pegs are going to go, and whatever area of influence we do, and if we stay faithful to that, I mean, the cumulative effect, just like you were saying, you're here and this person's there. I mean, that is glorifying God. And I love what you said about the garden, by the way, because it is the diversity of the colors.
Yes.
Format, like, we just want ambient rock for the worship service. That's really limiting it down. And I know there's a time and place for that, and there's some good musicians there. but it just narrows things down way
Yeah.
too narrowly. There's much more, like you're saying, right?
Yeah, there's way
I-
more.
I have two questions on my heart that I want to ask.
Go
The
ahead,
first
Jay.
one is regarding your track Watchmen. And I listened to the lyrics of the song,
Yeah.
and it's interesting. It's very fitting for this time.
That-
So we ought to be watchmen of our lives, our city, and we prayerfully speaking. So talk about that a little bit more. I see this.
Actually, that's my closing song for him. I was going to ask you the same question. We'll go right ahead.
This is amazing. You're so on the pulse, you know. So a couple of things. First of all, the opening verse, day after day. You know, this image of the watchtower up there, faithfully looking out, comes in Isaiah 20. So you'll see it's taken pretty well verbatim from that first verse, Isaiah 20. The second thing is I had one of the greatest cover songs people say that has ever happened is Jimi Hendrix's version of All Along the Watchtower. Jimi Hendrix lived in Vancouver, and there's a mural of him downtown. That's one of the most amazing murals. It's about 18 feet, you know, spray painting mural. Got me thinking about his version of All Along the Watchtower. And so I paid attention to the lyrics, and in that lyric, in Dylan's Watchtower, he's depicting a society that's filled with jokers and thieves, from which you can't get no relief. And I'm kind of going, you know, he was on it. There's a lot of deception. There's a lot of charlatans. There's a lot of jokers and thieves. But I there's got to be something more. There's got to be something more. And I kept asking myself, if I'm the watchtower in the tower, what would I be saying? Instead of the watchman saying doomsday is coming or the enemy's attacking, I just felt like I wanted to shout out grace, because that's the biggest message in the gospel and the biggest opportunity in your lifetime is to see grace offering you this amazing opportunity. And so that's the watchman calling out grace, right?
Now, go ahead. You have another question, Jason?
Yeah, my other question was, I know on your page you mentioned, I think it's a percentage of your proceeds go to, is it sex trafficking?
Yeah.
Could you explain, because I realize that might be something that might have been near or dear to you, and why the support, or, you know, if you could just elaborate more on that. Because that's important, that you don't really see that boldness sometimes in artists, that they're directly supporting, you know, almost like, attached to their ministry or charity or something like that.
I really appreciate you picking that up, you know, and it's on the back of the CD. About 4 years ago, I heard a presentation by a woman with an organization called Deborah's Gate, and they're under Salvation Army, a lesser known branch. And she presented with, you know, facts and pictures, real life stories of what was going on with women in Vancouver. Now, if you'd asked me at the time, does Vancouver have any sex trafficking? I would go, well, hey, no, I really don't. I don't. I mean, drugs, yes. Homelessness, yes. But sex trafficking, you know, I see some pimps here and there, but I don't think. Well, I was blown out of my chair. And she wasn't being sensationalistic. She was just telling it as it is. And she gave everybody an opportunity to say, hey, here's some ways you can help our women. And just to let you know, after a journey of recovery, we help train them as baristas. We've got JJ Bean's coffee place helping give these women jobs. I mean, it was all about giving people hope who've been trampled on, right? Who've been abused. And so somehow that got locked in my heart. I guess my wife and I, you know, were giving to them whatever here and there, a couple of times a year. And then when it came around to the album, I just really felt that was the cause, and to connect people to that cause. It doesn't have to be just in Vancouver. You know, I found out, by the way, this is a real interesting sidebar, but in the city that George Floyd was killed, that city is a major city, one of the highest cities for sex trafficking in the United States.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Go figure. I mean, just a whole bunch of stuff going on in the underbelly there. And I just, to me, that's just one of the most horrendous forms of abuse going on. And I guess I wanted to do something there. And so what's been so encouraging, Jason, thank you for your question again on this, is just how many people have given above and beyond on the CD, and even in Bandcamp. You know, there's an option like it says 10 US, and people 15 US, 20 US for the CD. They're giving that extra, not because of me, it's because they want to support this cause too. So somehow it's connected with people, that they want to make a difference and stop that.
Well, you know,
Awesome.
I'm glad that you mentioned that, because one of my morning tracks here that I play is called "Watch Human Trafficking."
Wow. Who's
So-
that? Who's the author in that or singer?
It first came to me because it's a woman out of Hamilton, Ontario, that had brought my attention to this human trafficking that is taking place right here in Ontario, and so I got the PSA announcement for human trafficking. So that is part of my morning show that I play, talking about human trafficking and so forth. Because even though some of us may not understand how it happens or where it happens, but it's constantly still in the works. It's an underground thing that people don't recognize as still is in the works, and it's worse now than ever. And it's something that we all need to get involved in and to help put a stop to it somehow.
Totally.
One of the things that Streaming Praise Radio is going to be involved in, and we are also broadcasting live on Fun City Radio FM and Success Radio as well. But one of the things that Streaming Praise Radio is going to get involved in, and hopefully, as Jason and I have talked about this before, not only do we want to support a child who is in a less fortunate situation, but I've often thought about human trafficking. Now that he brought it up, it is something that we're probably going to put somewhere along on our website to talk about how we can help support that side and who do we connect with. So now that we know you're connected to that, we're going to be reaching out to you some more
Totally.
about that and see how we can help somehow we
Absolutely.
can do what we can do, even
Yeah,
help
when I felt like
promote stuff about it too as well.
Absolutely. And sometimes you can sort of feel like, well, what can I do? You know,
Mm-hmm.
and I think what happened when I first had that presentation, I went, there is something I can do. It's in my city. And I can help them get to that barista program.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It gives them hope.
Right.
You know, it's not rocket science.
Right.
And to come alongside people who are just hurting
Mm-hmm.
is just the way in which Jesus came and identified with us. He came down. We just got to come down and identify with people that are in that place, you know, and it's not a pity party. It's just wanting to see them have a new chance and a new life. And that's what grace is it's second chance, third chance, you know, and try again.
Well,
You know?
I'm gonna say this, and then I'm gonna ask you one more question before I let you go. You just said it. Our ministry, our calling is to minister to reach out to those that are less fortunate than we are, and even to bring those that are lost in. As believers, that's our main objective. Going to all the world, preach the gospel, preach the kingdom, and also to help those that are less fortunate. Jesus always said it. He always said it, that this is what we need to do, and this is something we need to do. Now in COVID, in this COVID season, how does that affect you? How has it affected you?
Well, ironically, what happened for me is that with my work in the downtown east side 4 days a week, I actually came down with some asthma just as COVID was launching. Now, thankfully, it wasn't COVID-19, but the asthma wasn't going away. So I had some, respiratory issues. Thankfully, short story, had an infection in the lung, wasn't major, but some antibiotic just to clear that out. So I have actually taken 4 months off work. Meanwhile, the album arrived in boxes from Toronto, May 20th. And all of a sudden I had time each day to just begin to communicate. You know, it was a very different rhythm because usually the artists, as you know, we go out and, hey, I have an event, this concert, CD table afterwards, I'll sign you CD. All of a sudden I can't do that. So I just started to use email and phone call, but mostly email. Hey, let you know what's going on. Do you want to participate in this cause? Hey, what's going on in your life? What's been surprising to me is how many people have gotten back writing me these like almost letters in their emails, telling me things have been going on in their families or changing job or I got sick. Honestly, I did not see that door. Whether that was COVID related that caused this outpouring of hearts and catch up, if you like, in the emails, I'm not sure, but it was just amazing to connect with people. And so what's happened in a couple of months, and again, by God's grace, we've had 140 sales of the CD without any distribution.
Wow. That's
And
awesome.
we've also had, like 125 CDs and I think 16 Bandcamp downloads, with people giving above and beyond as well. So like I'm just encouraged that somehow water got on the wheel because I thought I can't afford to let these things just sit in the case. You've got to get it out there.
Right.
Start working. And I would just 2 or 3 hours a day and then I reached out to you guys and I was listening to what you guys are doing and I've loved Black Gospel for a long time and by the way, I got to say, Tashara Briscoe, wow.
Yeah.
I honestly, I'm going, I literally was a jaw dropper and going, and I don't even know this lady. You know, in fact, the other 3 artists I didn't know. I checked out 4.
Right.
And here we are, we're in our own areas of influence, like you were saying there, Clairmont. But I mean, I listened to her stuff, and she's a writer, and what she was, and I thought, this is great.
Yeah.
You know, this is great.
So now you're saying that. How did you hear about us, really? Did you just find us online?
Well, I actually started with kind of like because it had been 10 years since I've done my album, believe me, I needed a major update. And so I punched in Wikipedia, and they list 110 stations, and I'm going, oh my goodness, where do I even start? So I thought, well, let's start with some of your major cities, Toronto, Montreal. I knew one in Montreal. I knew 1 or 2 others in the country from the past who played me. And then I came across you guys, and what I would do is I would just go to the site and start listening, and I go, oh yeah, okay, I'm sending these guys some tunes, So just trying to sort of see that, do I hear and feel some alignment? I can't say that God tapped me on the shoulder and said, send it to these guys. You know what I'm saying? Trying to be sensitive to the moment. I felt like some days like I was a dart player blindfolded going, I hope I'm hitting the dartboard here, bonk, throwing the dart.
When Jason says, I got some new music for you, you're gonna love it. I love the guitar playing. I'm like, okay, send it to me. So I'm like, yeah, this is right up my, because this is my private moment, my personal time. This is the kind of music I like to listen to, by the way. You know what I'm saying? But it fits well in our morning show right here on Streaming Praise Radio. And of course, it's going to go over not only to our station, but we have another 2 sister stations that this program is broadcasted onto, Fun City Radio FM and Success Radio. So they're going to get a chance to hear you as well. And they branch off into different areas. There are 2 secular stations that carries our programs. So this is a very wonderful thing. Michael Mayer, I want to thank you so much for spending your time with us this morning, sharing your music, sharing your life with us. And, we're going to continue to pray that God continue to heal you with the asthma attack that you had, and that you'll be completely healed to be able to do what He's calling you to do. Again, thank you once again for being a part of this morning program. God bless you. Stick and stay with us right here on the Praise Life Morning Show. My name is Clairmont. This is the Praise Life Morning Show.
Thank you so much.
Day after day, I stand on the watchtower. Every night I stay watching at my post. Oh, watchman, tell me what's left of the night. Morning is coming, will it be alright? Today it will be stormy, for the sky is red. Sailors gave the warning, all the birds had fled. Pink moon fading into a blackout in the sky. Tell me who can read the signs of our times. I'm calling out, glory entered the world through the eye of sorrow. Beautiful pearl, you are the lion who broke the grave. My morning star, daybreak of grace. Days of confusion, not much relief. Watching for more than a joker and a thief. Faith, hope, and love are like the cry to the sun. And if the wind comes howling, well, I'll be singing, He's the one. I'm calling out, glory enter the world through the eye of sorrow. Beautiful pearl, you are the lion who broke best was saved for last. Must have been a miracle as they all raised their glass. Happened on the third day, like Jonah in the whale. Wine and the empty tomb, Christ my holy grail.